Mia Garcia rubbed her aching eyes as she finished wiping down the last of the sticky tables at Lillian's diner, a 24-hour mainstay in her sleepy seaside town. The faded checkerboard floor, flickering neon signs, and laminated menus offered a certain well-worn comfort, but tonight had been nothing short of punishing. She had clocked in before dawn after yet another no-show from a coworker and still found herself here, well past midnight. Worry gnawed at the back of her mind. Rent loomed in a week, her mother's medical bills were piling up, and she needed every tip she could scrape together. Just when she thought the night couldn't stretch any longer, the bell over the door jangled. A group of 4 men strode inside, their expensive shoes clacking against the old tiles. In a place more accustomed to fishermen and truckers, these men stuck out like a yacht in a fishing harbor. All slick suits, glossy watches, and loud voices, they exuded the air of people who'd expect luxury even at 2 in the morning. Mia forced a polite smile as she approached them, head throbbing from hours on her feet. One of the men flicked a dismissive hand at the sign reading, "Seat yourself." "Miss." "Over here," he barked, sliding into a booth. "We need a table big enough for real food, not this greasy spoon nonsense." She felt her jaw tighten, but kept her voice even. "I can get you a larger booth if you prefer." The man's sneer deepened. "That's better. We'll need a round of coffee. Actually, get me a latte. You guys have that, right?" A latte? At 2 a.m., in a diner that ran on battered coffee pots and a decades-old espresso machine? Mia's eyes flitted over to the kitchen door, remembering how often the ancient steamer hissed in protest. She mustered her composure. "I'll try," she said. "The machine's finicky, though." He waved her off, leaning back as if he owned the place. "Just do it." She retreated, her shoulders taut, and fiddled with the battered espresso machine. She whispered a silent prayer that it wouldn't break entirely. After fighting with the steamer, she managed to produce something resembling a latte, though it was hardly high-end barista quality. Trying not to dwell on her nerves, she brought it back to their table. The man took a single sip and made a face of disgust. "This isn't hot enough, and I need almond milk, not whatever this is." Mia's cheeks heated. "We only have regular or soy," he scowled. "Figures. Fine. Then just bring me black coffee. Fresh, okay?" Before she could respond, a calm, resonant voice interrupted. "If you're that picky about your coffee," it said, "you might try being more polite." Mia looked up, startled. A single man stood by the booth's edge, posture straight, yet somehow relaxed. He wore a charcoal suit that managed to look both understated and impossibly expensive. His dark hair was styled in a way that suggested he'd just left some formal event, and he held himself with quiet authority. "Who do you think you are?" the rude customer spat, glaring. "Nicholas Sterling," the newcomer replied, his voice unruffled. He inclined his head toward Mia. "I think you owe this lady an apology." A hush fell over the diner. Mia suddenly realized people around them had stopped chatting. The group in suits seemed rattled by Nicholas's stillness. No yelling, no threats, just a steely calm that demanded respect. The loud man cleared his throat and puffed out his chest. "Nobody asked you, pal." "I don't need an invitation to call out bad manners," Nicholas returned, narrowing his gaze. "Apologize." The man seemed to shrink beneath the stranger's intense gaze. He swallowed hard. "Sorry," he muttered, grabbing his coat and marching out, his friends trailing behind. The bell above the door jangled, and with that they were gone, tension lifting as if an invisible storm had passed. Mia realized she'd been holding her breath. "Thank you," she breathed. "You really didn't have to do that." Nicholas slipped into the newly vacant booth. "I couldn't just stand by and watch him treat you like that," he said simply. Then, more gently, "I'd love some black coffee if you don't mind." Relief flooded her. "Sure." She returned moments later with a steaming mug, quietly noting his composed aura. She'd never seen a man shut someone down so calmly, and in her diner, of all places. While sipping his coffee, Nicholas asked her about the menu, the town, the steady hum of local fishermen who wandered in after dawn. Mia answered hesitantly at first, but found herself opening up to his easy questioning. Something about him, past the polished suit and measured voice, seemed genuinely curious rather than condescending. When he finally stood to leave, he slipped a sleek business card into her hand. Her eyes widened at the embossed letters. Nicholas Sterling, Sterling Capital Group, a name that graced major financial headlines. "Call me if you ever need anything," he said softly. Then he left, disappearing into the cool coastal night. The next morning, Mia chalked the encounter up to strange circumstance. Billionaires didn't linger in tiny beach towns with broken-down diners. She carried on with her routine, waking early, serving regulars who ordered black coffee with cream and sugar, cleaning the grill between shifts. Only the faint reminder of Nicholas's crisp card in her apron pocket broke the monotony of the day. Late that afternoon, exhausted from a never-ending shift, she took a short walk by the rocky shoreline to clear her head. Gulls circled overhead, and the scent of sea salt mingled with the briny air. Her finances were in tatters, her mother's medication costs rising, and she felt the weight of it all like an anchor in her chest. A sleek black SUV pulled up on the roadside. Her eyes widened when Nicholas Sterling emerged, ending a phone call. He spotted her and smiled as though he'd been hoping to run into her. "Mia," he greeted, slipping the phone into his pocket. "I was actually looking for Lillian's diner again. But I got turned around. Care to point me in the right direction?" She hesitated. She hardly knew him, and yet his request felt oddly natural. "It's a few blocks that way," she managed, pointing up the street. "Big neon sign." Nicholas glanced at the softening afternoon light glinting on the water. "I have some extra time," he said. "Would you mind showing me around this beach? I know it's a random request, but I'd love a local's perspective." Uncertain but intrigued, Mia agreed. They walked together, feet skimming the damp sand where the waves lapped at the shore. Nicholas asked about everything. The best clam chowder in town, the hidden tide pools that kids explored on weekends, the old summer festival that used to attract tourists. He listened attentively, soaking in every detail as if it mattered deeply. Then, after a slight pause, he confessed he was considering a sustainable development in the area. Eco-friendly villas overlooking the ocean, focusing on solar energy and environmentally conscious design. "But I need someone local," he emphasized, "someone who understands the community. I don't want to roll over people's concerns." Mia blinked. "And you think that's me? I'm just a waitress." He tilted his head, studying her. "I saw how you handled a stressful situation, diffusing conflict while keeping your composure. That's rare. I'd pay for your help as a local consultant. You can keep your job at the diner if you want. I just need your insight." She almost laughed at the absurdity. "I don't know the first thing about real estate." "You're adaptable," Nicholas said, "and I can teach you. Or you'll learn on the job. The pay will be good, far better than any tip you'll earn at 2 a.m. His calm assurance settled over her like a comforting blanket. She thought of her mother's spiraling bills, her own rent coming due. Against her better judgment, she nodded. "All right, but I'm not promising miracles." Their partnership kicked off in a flurry of meetings at the town hall, casual visits to local shops, and phone calls with environmental consultants. Mia was stunned by how quickly Nicholas integrated her opinions, introducing her as his local advisor rather than just a waitress from Lillian's. Sometimes she had to remind herself that not long ago she was refilling coffee mugs behind a worn Formica counter. They spent late nights in Nicholas's rented seaside cottage, her poring over local history archives, him typing away on proposals and investors' calls. Over cups of strong coffee, they learned bits of each other's lives. She discovered he'd grown up modestly, building his empire with a small loan and meticulous planning. He discovered she was juggling debts, her mother's medical issues, and her dream of opening a tiny bakery someday. One evening, Nicholas surprised her with an invitation to a charity auction in a neighboring city. "You'll meet some officials. It might smooth the path for our project," he said. Mia hesitated, thinking of her closet full of threadbare jeans. The next day, a box arrived at her door. Inside lay a deep blue evening gown, simple yet stunning, with a short note in Nicholas's neat handwriting, "Wear this if you like. No pressure." Against all logic, she said yes. At the auction, the crowd glittered, jewel-toned gowns, polished tuxes, and champagne flutes clinking under grand chandeliers. Mia's stomach fluttered with nerves, but Nicholas stayed by her side, introducing her smoothly to city council members and philanthropic donors. Despite her initial fear, she found that her genuine passion for the local community swayed more hearts than she expected. Midway through the night, a glamorous woman named Selena approached Nicholas, greeting him with a too familiar smile. Mia's chest tightened as Selena dripped in sincere charm, eyeing Mia with thinly veiled disapproval. But Nicholas, just as calmly as he'd done in the diner, made it clear that he already had a partner he trusted. Selena's expression soured, and she drifted away with a haughty lift of her chin. The tension lingered. When Nicholas and Mia slipped out onto a candlelit balcony, the night air seemed to pulse with unspoken possibilities. Beneath the distant city lights, Mia admitted she felt out of place. Nicholas's look turned solemn and intent. "You don't have to be," he said quietly. "You're here because I want you here, not just for the project." She felt her heart race, about to question him further, but a passing official interrupted, summoning Nicholas back inside. Their conversation stalled, yet the spark that kindled between them only grew. Over the next few weeks, Mia dove deeper into planning local forums. Investors seemed impressed by how grounded she was, and locals started warming to Nicholas's development, seeing it as less of a threat and more of an opportunity, thanks largely to Mia's bridge building. Their professional teamwork morphed into comfortable companionship. Shared dinners turned to private jokes, and phone calls after midnight drifted from business plans to casual banter. But Mia's personal struggles refused to fade. Her mother's condition worsened, requiring costlier treatments. The diner pay plus Nicholas's consultant checks barely stretched far enough. She volunteered for extra shifts and showed up to Nicholas's place, running on empty. One evening, she nearly collapsed at the diner, too exhausted to stand. Nicholas appeared, concern etched into his usually composed features. "Mia, what's wrong?" She fought tears. "My mom's medical bills. I can't cover them, but she needs the treatments." He reached for her hands, sincerity carving deep lines into his voice. "Let me help. I'll pay you more and advance against future work. You're worth far more than I've been giving." Her pride instinctively resisted, but the fear of her mother's worsening health overshadowed it. "Thank you," she whispered, tears slipping free. He pulled her into a gentle hug, and for the first time she allowed herself to sink into his reassurance rather than hold herself rigid. Town gossip exploded. Patrons speculated that Mia was stringing along a billionaire or that Nicholas was buying a local stooge. She tried to ignore the whispers, trusting in Nicholas's steady confidence. When the local zoning board demanded a thorough environmental impact review, Nicholas decided to host a reception at the newly finished model villa, a chance for officials, townspeople, and potential investors to see firsthand how eco-friendly it all was. Mia planned every detail: local organic catering, a small jazz ensemble for ambiance, and guided tours of the solar panel roofs and water recycling systems. She wanted guests to leave feeling excited, not overshadowed or ignored. On the night of the event, the property sparkled with fairy lights, hugging the edges of the walkway. Mia wore a sleek black cocktail dress, a gift from Nicholas, but chosen by her this time. She felt a rush of nerves, worried about everything from the temperature of the hors d'oeuvres to the strength of the extension cords. Yet, Nicholas remained nearby, introducing her as a partner in the venture, his voice filled with understated pride. Every time she thought her heart might explode from stress, his calm gaze steadied her. Of course, no evening is perfect. Selena showed up, uninvited but smug, insinuating that Nicholas would soon leave this small project behind. Mia nearly snapped, but Nicholas diffused her anger with a subtle squeeze of her hand and a gentle reassurance. "I'm not going anywhere, Mia." Then came the real crisis. The generator powering the outdoor lights started to short out. Mia dashed outside to find wires sparking ominously. If the walkway went dark, the entire atmosphere she'd so carefully curated could fall apart. She fumbled with the fuse box, only to jump back as sparks flew. Tears burned at the corners of her eyes. She had tried so hard, and now it was unraveling in front of the most important guests. Nicholas arrived, flashlight in hand. "Easy," he murmured, his voice calm as he surveyed the wiring. "We might have to cut power before something worse happens." Mia's voice quavered. "I wanted tonight to be perfect, so everyone would believe in this project, and in you." Nicholas set down the flashlight, touching her arm gently. "They already do. You've done so much. One glitch isn't going to erase any of it." A knot of pent-up frustration and fear burst free inside her. I just want them to see you the way I do. She realized what she'd said too late, heat rushing to her cheeks. His eyes softened. Mia, he murmured, stepping closer. The only perspective I care about is yours. Then, with an unhurried certainty, he leaned in and kissed her. Electric warmth spread through her, the night and its worries momentarily forgotten. The generator wheezed and cut out, bathing them in semi-darkness. Mia pulled back, breathless and laughing, tears and relief mixing. I guess it's time for Plan B, she managed. They improvised. The staff passed out LED candles, herded the guests indoors, and rebranded the final hours of the reception as an intimate, candlelit gathering. The zoning board official actually praised how adaptable the team was, and many guests remarked it felt romantic and memorable. By the end of the night, potential investors were nodding in approval, and Mia's panic receded into grateful calm. Shortly after, the project gained the final green light. Nicholas Sterling's eco-friendly villas were set to rise, and Mia felt an odd pang, wondering if that meant her role and her closeness to Nicholas had run its course. She got her answer one afternoon when Nicholas appeared at the diner, leaning on the counter while she finished her shift. He asked her to go for a drive. Curiosity piqued, she agreed, only to find him pulling up outside a shuttered storefront with a faded sign reading Closed Bakery. The building had a quaint charm, a chipped turquoise door, wide display windows, and an old paint sign that hinted at the aroma of bread once filling the air. Stepping inside, Mia inhaled stale flour and memories of pastries past. Nicholas explained the owner had retired, leaving the space licensed for commercial food service. You mentioned your dream of opening a bakery, he said gently. Let's make it happen. Her heart pounded. I don't have that kind of money. He took her hands, voice quiet with conviction. I'll invest. You'll do the work, run it however you want. Consider it a business venture, and my way of believing in your talent. Tears blurred her vision. Nicholas, that's too much. Why would you? He looked at her the way he had that night in the darkness under flickering fairy lights. Because I see what you're capable of, and you deserve this chance. And because... He paused, voice trembling with a rare vulnerability. I want you in my future, not just this project, but everything ahead. She sank into his arms, hope and disbelief mingling until she laughed through her tears. Yes, she whispered. Yes, let's try. 2 months later, Seafoam Bakery and Cafe opened its doors to the public. Locals, curious about Mia's jump from waitress to bakery owner, trickled in. Scent of fresh bread and cinnamon pastries wafted out onto the street, drawing more customers each day. Her mother sat in a cozy corner, beaming with pride. Nicholas, dressed more casually than Mia ever thought possible, chatted easily with the new patrons, praising Mia's dedication and skill. That night, after closing, Mia all but collapsed into a chair, flour dust still clinging to her hair. Nicholas locked the door and joined her, leaning down to press a gentle kiss on her forehead. You did it, he said warmly. I'm so proud of you. She gave him a tired but radiant smile. We did it, she corrected, her chest tight with gratitude. None of this would have happened without you. He brushed off her thanks with a rare, tender grin. Don't underestimate your own strength. A week passed in a blur of pastries, growing crowds, and new staff hires. As the moon rose high one evening, Nicholas and Mia strolled along the beach, feet sinking into cool sand. The waves churned steadily like a reassuring lullaby. She felt a wash of contentment, the kind that replaced months of anxiety and self-doubt. Nicholas stopped suddenly, turning to face her. The moonlight illuminated the gentle angles of his face. He exhaled, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. Mia's heart hammered. When he opened it, the soft glow revealed a simple, elegant ring that caught the moonlight like a beacon. Mia, he said, his voice rough with emotion. I've built businesses, crossed continents, and tackled obstacles I never thought I could overcome. But I've never felt as sure about anything as I feel about you. Will you marry me? She choked back a stunned laugh sob, tears gathering in her eyes. Yes, she managed, voice trembling. Yes, 1,000 times yes. He slipped the ring onto her finger, and she rose on her tiptoes to kiss him, the sound of the ocean crashing behind them. When they finally parted, neither spoke for a moment. No words were needed. The night sky stretched out, infinite and shimmering, reflecting the hope and certainty that had taken root between them. For Mia, it felt like a dream woven from the threads of a once impossible life. A difficult shift at a rundown diner, a chance encounter with a man who saw her worth, and a future that promised partnership and love. Two hearts finding their place in a quiet seaside town, hand in hand, ready to face whatever came next.